the BBC, not a place of entertainment.
The Young Ones was a revolutionary comedy phenomenon that shook up comedy in the early 80s. Brought about Rick Mayall, Adrian Edmondson, Ben Elton and Nigel Planer's other major sitcom. Why was it a one-season wonder? And is it worth watching? Filthy Rich and Catflap stars Rick Mayall as Richie Rich, a grating light entertainment personality who lives with his violent alcoholic minder Eddie Catflap, played by Adrian Edmondson, and is managed by the frail agent/pimp Ralph Filthy, played by Nigel Planer.
When have I ever deceived you? When?
When you kept back all my cash.
Now, that's not deception, that's theft, Richard.
The show follows them on various failed attempts to make Richie famous, save Richie's reputation, or keep him out of prison.
Oscar Wilde, playwright, arrested for his beliefs. Lenny Bruce, comedian, arrested for his beliefs. Richie Rich, celebrity, arrested.
We're going nicking down the local shop.
The first thing you'll notice about this show is that it breaks the fourth wall a lot. Whilst the Young Ones broke the fourth wall plenty of times, I would say that it had an even looser relationship with the fabric of reality itself.
Oh no! I never knew I wore a wig.
However, about a quarter of Filthy Rich and Catflap, especially when they are in the flat, is spent talking to the audience.
Edward, there may be children watching, excuse me. What are you going to tell them next? There's no Father Christmas?
Yes, I have.
No.
Hello, kiddies. There is no Father Christmas. It's purely a marketing ploy to make knowing parents' lives a misery.
It's certainly not bad, although it is a bit much for my personal taste. It does affect the pacing of the show as a whole, although the plot is really just an excuse for various comedy setups more than anything else, meandering along as characters spend more time talking about what to do than actually doing it. The plot is more important than it is in The Young Ones, but they are still strange and the characters are kind of indifferent to the plot. You kind of have to see the characters as real and the plots as not real, as they constantly address the cheap jokes and the size of the studio.
Blimey, the news agents has got a lot closer since we moved into a smaller studio.
Shut up, Eddie, shut up! You're spoiling the magic for everyone.
Richie and Eddie are a variation of Mayall and Edmondson's double act of degenerate scumbags that they had been working on together since the late 70s. They have a similar dynamic to their namesakes in Bottom, with a bit more hostility and a hierarchy that's more reminiscent of the Dangerous Brothers. It still has plenty of the violent slapstick that they were known for. Richie Rich is a combination of Richie from Bottom and Alan Partridge, desperate to get on television, but also a socially inept and immature pervert, with Mayall's grotesque caricature of a performance rather than Steve Coogan's cringeworthingly accurate subtlety. Nigel Planer does a good job as Filthy. He's a very good character actor, which I think got overshadowed in the public eye by his overexposure as Neil. Not that I don't love his album and book, those are great and I highly recommend them. I just think he's kind of underrated as an actor as a result. This sickly, sleazy, middle-aged pornographer couldn't be more different from the downtrodden young hippie. Operation Yewtree would have had a field day with Filthy Ralph, so that will have made the show age better or worse depending on where your sense of humour is at.
Honestly, just because I run a chain of discount brothels, everyone seems to think I'm a dirty old man. Yeah, well, you've got to admit, there is a certain haphazard logic to that conclusion.
There are already plenty of guest stars, such as Barbara Windsor, Jules Holland, the Nolan sisters, and Bob Geldof.
No, mid-year. They couldn't get Bob Geldof for the show. We had to settle for mid-year. Well, it's all we can get for a bottle of Woodpecker and a snog with a stage doorman.
As well as many of their comedy contemporaries, such as Helen Lederer, Fry and Laurie, Andy de la Tour, Mel Smith, Harry Enfield, and Chris Barry, all of whom do a great job. I'm convinced they invited David Baddiel just so that people could tell the difference between him and Ben Elton. I mean, come on, Ben Elton decided to do his cameo standing right next to him. As for the humour, it's very much character-based. Mayall said when he was interviewed for the 1989 book Didn't You Kill My Mother-in-Law, the story of alternative comedy in Britain from the Comedy Store to Saturday Live, that it went into the studio too early, and I do think it could have done with a bit of refining. There's perhaps one pratfall too many, and I never found the recurring mistaking the doorbell for a fart gag funny, but the jokes are mostly solid and the sheer frequency of them certainly makes up for it. I'd say it's probably funnier than a lot of mainstream sitcoms of the time. In addition, the core cast wringed every last drop of comedy out of the material with their physicality. They'd be funny regardless of the script. I love the fact that they speak in constant abbreviations in an effort to sound trendy, which is not dissimilar to the slang of today when you think about it.
You will soon be in priz. Priz? Priz on. You are in trouble. Trouble? Big trouble.
So, why was there only one series? Did they not get enough views to get the series recommissioned? I believe I'm right in thinking that it was Mail and Elton who decided not to renew it. As you can see, they don't have equal billing, as Elton is billed as the sole writer, with Mail only getting an additional material from credit. I think this can be attributed to the fact that they were no longer writing with Lisa Mayer. You see, when they wrote The Young Ones, Mail and Mayer, who were a couple at the time, would write the material together, and Elton would write material by himself, and then they would get together and assemble what they had written, with Mail getting the final say. It's easy to see how this would really suit the random, anarchic, fast-paced nature of the show. Mail and Mayer had broken up by then, and Elton spent most of the time writing it whilst he was in hospital, and then he ended up writing most of it, so Mail took his name off the writing credit. They would continue to work together here and there, probably most notably with Flashheart from Blackadder, just not write together. Would I recommend the show? Yes. It's not the best work of anyone involved in my humble opinion, but that certainly doesn't make it bad. It's generally viewed as a spiritual successor to The Young Ones, or a spiritual predecessor to Bottom, and whilst I do try to see everything I review as its own thing, on its own merits, it's difficult to avoid comparing it to the shows it's bookended by. It doesn't help that not only are the direct pop culture references outdated, but the style of light entertainment it was written to satirise no longer exists. I recognise the names of celebrities I mentioned in the show, but the only one I really knew anything about was Michael Barrymore, and that's because I watched the documentary about the body found in his swimming pool. That kind of stuff, which plenty of people found charming in its day, is now considered laughably cringy by the majority. So you could argue that the show has aged better now, as more people side with the writers. You could certainly still argue that bland entertainment has a stranglehold on the industry, but instead of tame and naff stand-up comedians, it's reality television and crap YouTube videos. Wait, no, I know that this is a crap YouTube video, but I've nearly finished. However, the satire of journalism has held up pretty well, and there are jokes have some renewed relevance in Tory Britain. Whilst I wasn't a big fan of the show, I would certainly still call it underrated and would recommend it to fans of the cast, alternative comedy in general, and Ben Elton's sitcoms, particularly his zanier stuff. I imagine it also has an element of nostalgia for people who were around in the 80s, regardless of whether or not they've actually seen the show before. I warmed to it over time, including when I rewatched it whilst writing this review. Thankfully, it has a cult following, with a dedicated podcast that has been going for about 2 years now, that has interviewed multiple members of the cast and crew. If you want to check it out yourself, it was made available on DVD, and both of the VHS tapes are for sale on the Rick Mail scrapbook. The final episode has been heavily edited for copyright reasons for home media, so you have to see those bits on YouTube. That reminds me, I'm never going to see Moulin Rouge the same way again.
Jealousy will drive you mad!
Roxanne! You'll have to stick your message up a bottle!
If you want to watch me talk about the show where the cast made their names, you can watch my review of The Young Ones here. See you soon!
Look everybody, look what I just did!